Greetings, Japan fans. In today's show, we have an interview with Nikhil Gutpe, who is the president of Barilla here in Japan, on his experiences of leading a Japanese team in Japan. Arigatou gozaimasu, and welcome back to the Leadership Japan series. I'm your host in Tokyo, Dr. Greg Story, your corporate coaching and training guide, the president of Balcony Train Japan, the best-selling author, Japan Sales Mastery, and we have the new book on how to master business in Japan called Japan Business Mastery. We're broadcasting around the world from Minato-ku in the center of Tokyo, the leadership capital of Japan. This podcast brings insights, examples, and experience about leading in Japan, and trust me, as you'll hear in our interview today with Nick, it is different here. If you have feedback on the show or have preferences about potential future topics, then leave us your comments. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast. Now, here's our daily lineup on iTunes. Mondays, the Cutting Edge Japan Business Show. Tuesdays, the Presentation Japan series. Wednesdays, the Sales Japan series. Thursdays, this one, Leadership Japan series. And Fridays, the Japan Business Mastery Show. Before we get going, today's handy-dandy Japanese phrase is... Say you want to get together with someone and they're suggesting some possible times and you're very flexible and, any time's good. You just say, "Itsudemo iyo." Hey, any time's good for me. "Itsudemo iyo." "Itsudemo iyo." Hey, shall we get together and have lunch? Maybe sometime next week? Yeah, any time's good for me. "Itsudemo iyo." "Itsudemo iyo." "Itsudemo iyo." Hey, listen, why don't we catch up? Let's get our schedules together and catch up. See when you're available. Hey, listen, I'm good anytime. "Itsudemo iyo." "Itsudemo iyo." "Itsudemo iyo." "Itsudemo iyo." This is episode number 345, and today we are having an interview with Nikhil Gutpe from Barilla. He's the president of Barilla in Japan, talking about leading in Japan. So let's get into the interview. Welcome back to this episode of Japan's top business interviews. It's my great pleasure to have as my guest today Nikhil Gutpe from Barilla, the very famous Italian pasta company. Nikhil, great to have you with me today. Thank you very much.
Have you here,
Thank
Greg.
you. So, many people will know about Barilla, but they may not know about you, or they may not know about Barilla in Japan. Can you talk a little bit about your background and how long ago you came to Japan, that type of thing?
Sure. As you can see, I'm of Indian origin, so born and brought up in India. I'm a mechanical engineer by background. So I did my engineering in India and then moved to Australia in 2003. I went there for the studies. I did my master's in engineering. I did my master's in business. So I did 2-3 years of intensive studies, and then finally started working for Barilla. So Barilla, in a way, is my first full-time job. I'm close to completing around 14 years in the business with Barilla. I started into supply chain field in Sydney, based in Sydney, with Barilla Australia. Then started moving up the ladder, as it happens normally. And so I was moved to Singapore, managing the Asia region. So I was managing India, Southeast Asia, Korea, and a few of other smaller countries. And from there on, I came here just last year. So I came to Japan in July 2018. So it's been an interesting journey with Barilla.
So, given the fact you're working in Australia, you're based in Singapore, but covering a lot of countries, what was sort of the most challenging thing for you as a leader when you first turned up here in Japan?
The first striking thing, on a personal as well as professional level, is the lack of English. Because for me, I've always lived in countries where English is an accepted or main language. Even in India, growing up as well, English is widely spoken in any official space. So it was very striking for me of no Japanese. And for good or bad reasons, I never really came to Japan as a tourist. My first experience, my first visit to Japan was October 2017, I think, when I came here on a business visit where we had a leadership meeting for the region. Then when the role was offered to me, I came here as part of the handover with my predecessor in April 2018. So I've never really come to Japan as a tourist, never really spent any time. So for me, it was completely fresh, completely new as an experience. So that was my first challenge, just knowing and understanding Japan. Um, so if I have to put my finger on something specific, it is really that lack of English, that lack of language skill that I never had as a non-Japanese speaker. And then apart from that, there is a cultural part. Apart from that, there is a business culture, the business etiquette.
What was different?
If I just compare to Australia, Singapore, it's much more casual. Even in Australia as well, it's very, very casual. You can turn up in jeans and tees on a Friday, and it's okay. Uh, so dressing up is one of the factors which is very, very formal as compared to even Singapore as well. It's much more casual as compared to Japan. Another part is the hierarchy that is very, very present in Japan as compared to other countries. So I think these are a couple of factors.
The hierarchy is built around what?
I think hierarchy is more of a top-down approach. So
This is based on age? Is it based on gender? Is it based
It's
on
a
time in
position.
the company? What is that hierarchy based on?
I believe it's a position in Japan. So now it is in Japanese world, if I take myself out of the equation, but in the Japanese world, as I understand, hierarchy comes from the position, which comes from the time in the company, which comes from your growth that you spend or number of years in the company. So it's a very predictable growth. If you spend, say, 10, 15 years in a company, you would get to a particular position. Whereas in the Western world or world outside Japan, normally it's based on talent. So if you have the talent, you are part of that select group, and then you get the opportunities if you are hungry and if you are willing. So I think that's very different. Now, hierarchy in Japan for me is very much in position. So I've been in meetings where with my team as well, if I say something, that pretty much becomes the last word. Whereas I come from a culture, and I relate to the culture of Australia as well, where I'm free to question my boss. I'm free to ask the question to my boss, or even say to an extent, I don't agree with this. In Japan, that would be a disaster. So that's something that is very striking for me, and I need to be very careful where I'm not the first person to state my own views, because what's going to happen is then there's going to be silence. Nobody's really going to be able to share anything. So in fact, that is something that I've been working with my team as well in a very conscious manner. So when we have our team meetings or a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting, I try to be the last one to share my own views, and that brings that element of contribution from the team members, which is very important. And this is something, I mean, for your, I go back to your original question on what is it that you would like to tell to someone new in Japan. This is something that is very simple nuances that people normally don't talk about, but it's something that is very important.
It's interesting because in our cultures, we're trained to be dynamic, to seize the leadership mantle, to have a strong opinion,
Exactly.
to debate and argue and tell people what we think, and we decide what happens in the meeting. So what about in Japan, where they have that culture of nemowashi, where all of the decisions for the meeting are actually taken before the meeting in individual meetings, and the meeting actually becomes more of a formality. Did you bump into that where, amongst your Japanese team, that they've basically already decided what the position consensus will be, and then that's what pops up in the meeting? Or is it actually more of a debate style here?
To be honest with you, I have challenged that culture. I have challenged that thought process within my team. I mean, I have got a very small team here. We are in total 10 people. So in a way, it's easier for me to build that kind of culture, that kind of team. And as I was saying earlier, it's a conscious effort that I'm trying to make here. But yes, I agree when we are talking to our stakeholders outside my team. I've been into meetings where we are meeting for the sake of it, or we are meeting for a handshake, where all the work has been done through 10, 15, 20 meetings even with my team, with their peers. And then I meet either a president of a company or a country manager or my equivalent. It's a handshake. It's basically we are agreeing to what both companies have agreed to. We are just putting a face to it at a level that the Japanese want to be.
That point you mentioned about, the meeting, if you dominate the meeting as the leader, they all go silent and will execute whatever you say. At what point did you start to realise, hang on a minute, I'm the captain of the ship here.
Yeah.
They will sail whichever direction I want them to go.
Yeah.
I'm not getting any feedback, and I don't know Japan. I don't speak the language. I'm new to the market. Whoa, this is getting a dangerous area. When did that sort of strike you?
I think in the first couple of months, because suddenly I realized that I'm the one who's speaking in our meetings. And I'm like, okay, something's not right. And then I spoke to a few people as well, and then obviously people give you advice. And one thing that I believe is very good over here in Japan, especially in Tokyo, is there is a good network of expats. And these expats who have been here, as yourself as well, who's spent a very long part of your life here, the suggestions, the advice come very naturally. So there is no, and then these people are there to help you. You just need to ask the questions. So when I experience these issues, and this is just one example, but other stuff as well. And when you reach out, when you talk to people, they say, yes, this is Japan. So and especially outside Japan, as I was saying earlier, when you're coming here for the first time, you hear a lot of things. You hear Japan is tough, Japan is difficult, the culture is very different, but you don't really know what exactly to expect. So there is a big buzz outside Japan. There is a big noise outside Japan that how difficult Japan is. But then when you come here and then you start picking up these simple things and you then start connecting the dots. It's a journey. For me, it's a beautiful journey where you come with a mindset that, oh my God, this is going to be an interesting or very difficult experience. And I can also give an advice to the new beginners in Japan is it's not as bad as it is made out to be, in my view. Yes, there are simple, very specific differences, but then that's the part of an expat journey where you put yourself into those situations because you don't come here to become comfortable. You come here to put yourself into challenging environment, throw yourself a challenge, and it's all part of the fun. It's part of the learning.
When you said, there are those differences, you talked about the language as one difference, the meeting having to actually hold your opinion back, to have people put forward their opinions and be more involved in the meetings. Apart from those two things, what were some other differences that you encountered?
These are the two key striking ones that I really faced. A lot of things, yeah. One of the things is, which has in fact happened very recently on a very important topic with one of our partners here, is a lot of times they say yes to everything, but that yes could be either they did not understand and they are saying yes just to be polite, or they don't agree with you but they are being polite and they are saying yes to it. But then when they go back, and then I hear from my team that no, that was not the case, or they did not agree with it. So this is something that is very interesting, because for me, be it in Australia, be it in Singapore, or most of the Southeast Asian countries, if I tell you, Greg, I don't agree with you, it's a very simple dialogue. No, we can agree to disagree in a meeting. Here, I would deliver my stand. So even negotiations are quite interesting. When you negotiate with someone, I would say, okay, this is what we can do. This is the possible thing, and they would either nod along, they would be okay, and then you kind of get a feeling, oh, okay, that was a good result. I think that was a very good meeting, and you come out of the meeting all happy and all cheerful, and then you think that, okay, I've done it. We have got what we wanted. After a couple of days, the team comes and tells me that, you know what? The message that you gave was either understood in a completely different way that you delivered, or they don't agree with you. And then it's like, no, but they were not even wrong. Yes, but no, it was just a polite way of saying that, yes, we hear you. Doesn't mean that we agree with you.
So therefore, how do you find out if they actually do agree with you or not? How do you actually know we've got something agreed here, we move ahead with it? Okay, we understand what we've got to do. We expect you are going to start doing some things to match that, and away we go. How do you actually get people to agree with you here? How have you found a way to do that?
Only one way, and that is probing. You have to ask questions. You have to ask questions. And one very interesting advice somebody gave me when I just moved in was, you have to ask questions that might, the answer might be negative. So they would normally say everything positive. So they will answer in affirmative most of the times. So if you ask a question, so if I wanted to get something, and if I ask, so do you think this is possible? They would say yes. On the other side, you could say, so you don't think this is not gonna happen? This is not really possible? They'll say yes. So if they don't agree, I mean, so it's or they will respond in a completely different way. So these are, I mean, simple things that you have to then start looking, and going into meta position, I think, is also very important, because in any negotiation, in any business meeting, I think a lot of business leaders would do that to understand what they would want, what to get into their shoes, what is it that they want. But then also looking at from an outside, okay, what's going on here? Are they just agreeing with me? Are they being polite? Or there is something that is hidden? So it's about asking those right questions, trying to understand what they want out of this. And our approach, and this is something that Barilla has taught us as business leaders, is we are not here to win by ourselves. We are here to win as a partner. So all our suppliers, all our customers are our partners. So if I try to win today like that, yes, I might have a good year. Next year, I'm going to flunk. So we need to find an approach that is win-win, which is something that is very important, because Barilla has been in business for 140 years, more than 140 years. So
it's 140 years.
140 years.
That's a long time.
It's a fourth generation family-owned company.
How long has it been in Japan?
In Japan, it has been there for about more than 20 years as well. So long journey, long history in Japan. But we are. I admit we are a small part of a big market, and we are on our track to achieve our goals. But so we are still quite small, as you can see, it's a small office, but it's a very driven team. So it's the growth in Japan is coming in a very strong way in terms of versus what is normally accepted in Japan, which is single digit growth.
Today's show is brought to you by our public courses, but we also do custom in-house programs, do these in both Japanese and English. Today's show is sponsored by two of our programs. We have our next Step Up to Leadership program. That's coming up on the 12th of June. That's a nice little one-day program. That's the 12th of June for Step Up to Leadership. For something much more detailed, we have our Leadership Training for Managers program. That kicks off on the 19th of May and runs for 7 weeks. So May 19 starts, runs for 7 weeks. The one-day program, Step Up to Leadership, great little program. What is your role as a leader? Let's be clear about that. Let's clarify that. What do you need to do as a leader when you communicate? What do you need to do as a leader when you coach? How do you get performance from the team? They're the main things we cover in that one-day program. Great bridge between when you've been a player to becoming a player manager or becoming a manager. So great little program, one-day program. Next one, 12th of June. Leadership Training for Managers. It's a 7-week program, much more involved, much more in-depth. Now, many, well, I'd say almost 90% plus Japanese leaders are totally untrained. They have on-the-job training, which I don't count, actually, because it's a hit-and-miss affair. If your boss is good, not good. What does the boss have much time to teach you anyway? Not much, they're all busy. But this is really in-depth, really well-structured, goes through everything in incredible detail. It's it's thorough. This is like, this is a Swiss Army knife of leadership. It's got everything. Perfect. So the next one coming up will be on May, starting on the 19th and running through to the 30th of June. So every week for 7 weeks. Great programs if you're looking for leadership training. Now, our website's full of useful resources. You can go there to enjapan.dalecarnegie.com. You can email me, greg.story@dalecarnegie.com. And if you like learning and watching videos, our YouTube channel is Japan Dale Carnegie TV. Go there. We're releasing 2 TV shows on YouTube every week. The Cutting Edge Japan Business Show, that's a premier business show on Business Japan. It comes out every Monday. And the Japan Business Master Show comes out on Fridays. And get my book, Japan Sales Mastery, and my new book, Japan Business Mastery, both #1 bestsellers, available on Amazon. And so coming back to meeting with partners or clients, trying to really ascertain, well, have we got an agreement here or not? And you're basically framing your questions in the negative to get them to give you an answer that's clear. How have you found, or when did you find that was required? At what point in your journey did you start to realize, I've got to reframe my questions?
Yeah. Now, to be honest, it was an advice given by someone in my initial 6 months.
Oh, okay.
So because I was having these experiences where I come out of the meetings all excited that, yes, we have done it or we have got it. And then I was having these experiences where the team comes and tells me, no, this is not what exactly they are saying, or now either they have changed their position, at least that was my perception, that no, but in meeting we all agreed. Why are they saying something completely different now? So it's more of a understanding or a reading between the lines. Okay, there seems to be a problem. Something's not right.
Are you able to ascertain that through body language or voice tone? Because in a normal Western culture, we can read each other's body language.
Yes.
We can sense. They're not going to go for that. You can just see the body language telling you. But how about here? How's your Japanese body language skills development coming along?
I seriously believe that they must be really good at poker because the face is very much poker face. It's very difficult to read the body language. Because I think that the key to everything is I don't think they wear emotions on in their body in that sense in a meeting. So if we don't agree with something, we will do some body gestures where you think, okay, this is not going well. They would be very, very, very nice to you, very polite to you. They would be all smiling. They would not say anything that they don't agree with, or they are not supposed to say, or they're not supposed to show emotions. So I think they really hide their emotions very well. So it's very difficult, in my experience at least, to read the body language in Japan.
Right. And in terms of your own team, telling you bad news or your own team flagging errors and mistakes, how's that been going? Because for a lot of this culture, it's a mistake-free culture. It's a defect-free culture. So people really, really avoid making mistakes and they avoid having errors. And often the last person they want to flag for an error or a problem is the boss, and from the boss's point of view, you want to find out early because you've got the money and power to fix it normally. But how have you found getting your own people to come and tell you that something's not going right or it's a problem or this is a defect or whatever?
Look, it's a combination of a few factors, which is the environment you create in the office, the trust that you create in the office, and also the communication, the message that you want to send to the team. So initially, as I was saying earlier, it was tough. It was tough for them to open up to me because I'm new. I mean, I'm very different in a sense. I'm not even a normal expat, someone from US or from someone from Australia in that sense. I'm an Indian who has been in many countries and now in Japan doesn't speak a word of Japanese. So for them as well, I was someone completely different animal. So it takes time, and it takes time for especially Japanese colleagues to open up. Now, one positive aspect that I have in my team is I have a mix of Italians as well as Japanese. So I have a few Italians in the team who are very fluent in Japanese. So they've been here in Japan for some time. And we hired them for their skills, obviously, but obviously because they speak Japanese as well. And it helps. It helps a lot externally within the company. So talking to Italy, explaining the Japan side of the story, as well as within the company as well, within here, where if there is any issues, they talk to each other. So in a sense, because I feel that a lot of times the Italian part of the team gets it in a very quick way, whereas the Japanese either are confused or they're not getting the message in a clear way. So as I was saying, it is a part of journey. So initially it was tough. I believe, or at least I would like to believe now, it is improving a lot because even in our team meetings, the environment is not about me being the boss. I know everything. I have all the answers. What I say is the correct one. At the same time, so what I try to tell them is it's okay to make mistakes. Don't worry about making mistakes. I want you to make mistakes, then you will learn. But it has to be once. Same mistake, same kind of mistake has to be only once. You got to learn from it. If you make the same mistake again, you're foolish. If you make the same mistake 3 times, please find another job. So it's very clear in that sense. So making mistakes is something that is not frowned upon, that is not I try to tell them in a very clear way that it's absolutely okay to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I don't have to be right all the time. And which also gives them that assurance of, okay, if I'm saying something and they are not agreeing with it, they have started to open up and saying that, Nick, but I think this is something could be done in a different way, or this could be in Japan. This is a way would be better appreciated. It's a learning for me as well. And so that's the kind of culture that we are trying to develop here. So in a way, as I was saying, there are multiple aspects. One is about having a mixed team. So it's not 100% Japanese team. Another aspect is the culture, the team environment, team building that we try to do. So in July this year, we all climbed Fuji, which was when I first proposed, it was frowned upon. Everybody was like, "Are you crazy?" But then everybody turned up. We climbed Fuji, and it kind of helped the team to bond as well, which is something quite interesting. So
why did you want to climb Fuji?
Because I wanted to climb Fuji, and on the other side, in terms of the business, I wanted them to go through that tough period because directionally in Japan, doing business is by definition tough. And of course, Barilla has very strong ambitions, very strong growth ambitions. And I wanted them to be mentally prepared in a way. So a lot of times, whenever we are encountered with a problem, in a very simple way, I tell them, look, we all climb Fuji together. This is easy. We can do this. It's very good motivation, very good team spirit that brings it. And I saw that when, in fact, when we were climbing, and it is one of the most toughest thing I've done. I mean, I've done a 8-day trek in Himalayas during my young days, but this was very tough because we did this in one day. We didn't stay there overnight. So it was, we started in the morning, we came down by afternoon, evening, and I could see that if people are struggling, the rest of the team members doesn't have to be Italian or Japanese. We're trying to help that team member, work with him, give him support, talk to him, take the breaks with him. So, and this is something that I wanted out of this, because there is a potential when you have a mixed team. So I have five of Japanese and 5 Italians. There is a possibility of groupism to happen, because Italians could stick together, Japanese could stick together. It's nice, easy, convenient.
And the Indian guy's all by himself.
Yeah, exactly. And the Indian is basically don't know which side do I take. But what I saw there is there was this genuine team spirit developing. That was quite important. And that's exactly what I wanted. So it's about conquering your fears, being there for each other, helping each other out. Because especially in a small team, this is always the case. In Japan, and that's something that I forgot to also share earlier, in Japan, there are silos of individual work space and silos of this is my job description, I do that.
Why is that?
I believe one of the reasons is the perfection, because they look for perfection. They want to be perfect in what they do. And they would like to get better at what they are doing. So in that silo, they want to be the best. But then a small office requires them to be more flexible. They should be doing multiple tasks together, which is not very common for Japanese. So this concept of helping each other, I believe, this is my own views, is not very common in Japan. They are very much used to working in silos, in taking care of their own job, not really knowing what everybody else is doing, not necessarily. In fact, for our size of business that we have in Japan, I could, if I was a Japanese company, I could easily have at least 30 to 40 people out there. That's something that is very different. So we are a multinational. We believe in investing as you grow. That is our strategy everywhere. And it's about being part of a family. So we call various Barilla offices casa. Casa in Italian means home. So this is our home. We spend a considerable amount of time here. So we want people to be comfortable. We want people to be happy coming and working for Barilla. We don't want to have 40 people here. If the results are not coming, we let 10 people go. That's not the culture that Barilla has. That's not the values that Barilla has. So it's very homely, very family kind of environment.
Thinking about many international companies do staff surveys, satisfaction, engagement, that type of thing. I'm wondering, I don't know if the timing worked or not, but I was just thinking about if you had previous engagement scores and then after your Fuji adventure, whether those engagement scores improved on the survey as a result. Did the timing work for that, or how has the engagement scores been going?
Look, unfortunately, we don't do an every year survey, at least not up until this point. Japan is part of a global survey that we do within Barilla, which happens every 2 years. So this year we had it, last year we did not have it. So I don't really know whether we have improved or not in that sense. But overall survey that was done after my Fuji trip. So again, I don't know whether the Fuji trip did make a difference or not. It would be wrong to say it did for that particular moment. But the results were quite positive. The results were, in fact, one of the key expectation from the team is, okay, how do I grow? What are the things that I'm going to learn here? So that's something that is quite interesting, quite good, and which is very common in any country. So there was nothing very specific that could be termed as only in Japan kind of moment. So the results were very similar to a country maybe in Singapore or even in Australia, where people look for, okay, what are my growth opportunities? What are the trainings available? So that's something that is very interesting, I think. So there was nothing Japan specific.
That's interesting. And in terms of innovation, because this perfectionism, fear of mistakes, holds people back, holds people down in terms of thinking about trying new things or actually executing on new things. How have you found that innovation component here in Japan so far?
Yeah. Look, in my team over here, we don't really do innovation, or we don't really plan innovation locally, because all the products are manufactured in Italy. So if there is any innovation or innovation pipeline happens in Italy. But for us, innovation in a way, or more than innovation, I would say improvement. Improvement is about business processes. It's about how we execute things over here. How do we challenge ourselves to do better each day, every day? It's not good enough to be good. How can you go from good to better and better to best? And that's a cycle. So that part is something that I challenge the team, and I can see the team has started responding as well in that sense.
How do you go about communicating that challenge?
It's so in that sense there is no brainstorming. It's more of a direction. So again, it's a situational leadership that you have to play, especially in Japan, if you want your team to respond with you. Now, this is a situation where going from good to great is not negotiable. We have to do it. If we had certain XYZ issues this year, why did we have it? In fact, just yesterday we had that kind of meeting, yes, to understand how was this year, what did we do wrong, what are the improvement areas, how do we action it. And that's something that I did last year as well. That's something that I did this year as well.
How did you run that, though? You say there's no brainstorming per se, but how do you get people to volunteer that insight into what went well, what didn't go so well?
Yeah. So what did not go well, especially what went well, is easy. That's the harder part, is what did not go well and what are the action plans. So as a leader, I say this is what we have to do. Now, it's important for me not to say or point out what went wrong. It needs to come from the team.
Why is that?
Because there is a bit more there is more tangible things associated with it. It needs to come from them because they also need to have that awareness. Awareness is the first part of improvement, whether it is self or process. And it's important for it to come from the team, because if I tell them that no, these are the things that we did wrong, there is a chance they might not accept it. There is a chance they might not agree with me, but then I'm the boss. They have to say yes. So what I do is I break them down in small teams, 2 or 3 people. They go out for an hour. They discuss among themselves. So then it's about group thinking in a way, and they're able to talk to each other. They are able to very clearly share with each other. And I am not part of those groups. So I'm outside. They are probably here in small 2 or 3 groups. They talk to each other, and then they come up. And then when I am in the room, then it's a discussion. Then it's sharing of what each of the group is thinking.
Do they do like a presentation to you, or
It's a discussion.
a discussion?
Yeah. So one of the team members would say, okay, these are the 3 or 4 points that we came up with, that we believe are not working, and this is the action plan as we suggest. Then the discussion starts. So other group members either have the similar kind of points or they have come up with something else, and then there is a discussion. So setting the direction, this is what we have to do, is my role. How to do it, I want to come from them, and that's important.
So they don't get a chance to set the direction. They don't get a chance to say, well, in our opinion, in Japan, we should be going this direction rather than the one that you're setting. Do you ever get that sort of degree of feedback?
Yes, we do. I do. Because at the end, I've been in Japan for 1 year. I've been working outside Japan for all my life. So it's very natural for me to think in a very Western, with a very Western mindset that, no, but this is easy. This is simple. It might be simple in some other country, not in Japan. So there are multiple instances. And what I'm also happy is now the Japanese team is coming and telling me, but I'm sorry, this is not happened. This is not how it is done in Japan. So it has been my own personal learning and education on Japan.
Yeah, and in terms of, part of that, being able to tell the boss is wrong, it comes back to that trust factor you talked about before. And you mentioned that, you give people basically 3 strikes on making the same mistake.
Yeah.
But how did you go around building the trust that people would open up to you and tell you what's really going on or tell you what's really in their mind? Because as you say, that body language, poker face, ability to hide what they're thinking is pretty well developed here. They're all ninja at that.
Yeah.
How did you get around that?
A lot of times there is a one-to-one angle to it as well. So, of course, there is a very conscious effort of creating the trust in a team. There is a very conscious effort of creating that bond within the team. But then I share a personal bond with each of them. And it's important also to get them out of the team environment and have a very open one-to-one chat.
How do you build that bond one-on-one?
It's one way of doing it is obviously, it's a very simple thing. It doesn't have to be very formal where you are locking yourself up in a meeting room. It could be as simple as just going out for lunch. It could be as simple as just going out for drinks. I know in Japan there is a big drinking culture after office day. Unfortunately, with my commitments, and I've got a family to look after, so I don't really invest too much time in that. But
do they do that themselves? It's changing, they tell me.
No, I don't think so. Not at least that in this office, it doesn't happen that way.
They're not going out,
not that much,
hitting the bar and bitching about
No.
the boss after hours. It's not happening yet.
Not that I'm aware of about the bitching part, but no, in fact, because a lot of them have the families, so they are not really single. So they have this longing to go back to the family. And they are here until 7 and 8. And some days I have to kick them out that, okay, work from home or go home specifically. We have a strong smart working culture in Barilla, where 2 days a week they can work from home or anywhere else. So again, the trust factor comes in there as well.
Are they taking up that offer? Are people doing that?
They are, surprisingly, and the feedback has been very, very positive. Initially, there was a bit of reluctance. There was a bit of confusion that, hold on, how's that going to happen? So I don't come to office? And the answer is no, don't worry. You stay home, save time, save the effort on commuting and going through the whole hoopla. You stay home, you do your job. Because what we don't look at is the time. There is no, as you might see here, there is no clocking in, clocking out machines. It's a very flexible, open office. There is glass everywhere. There are no walls. So it's a very specific and very intentional approach towards creating that trust. Trust does not come with, I tell someone, I trust you. Trust is in actions. Trust is in how you behave, how you create that environment for them. So be it smart working, be it these kind of open dialogue, is what creates trust.
And in terms of people come up with ideas on their side, what's the take-up rate from you? Because if people come up with ideas, they trust you, they come up with an idea, but then you don't go for it, right? You say, oh, no, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't like that idea.
Yeah.
This tends to kill off the whole process, and then people go, well, there's no point telling this guy anything because he doesn't listen to what I say. So how do you get around that problem of things which may not fit into the Barilla mothership concept of things, but which they think would be good? How do you balance that out?
There are two things that are very important. First is the company's strategic priorities. Does the idea gel with the strategic priority or not? That's question number one. Second is the approach in itself, because yes, someone might come with an idea, I might have my own idea, and a third person would come with a completely different set of ideas for the same problem. Now, it's very important here to understand and have that faith in each other, that it's not about me being right, it's not about you being right or somebody else being right, it's about the problem. Which is the best solution to fit that problem? So one of the things I tell my team a lot is keep your ego outside. We don't need any kind of ego. I don't bring my ego to work. And that's important because...
How do you display that? How do you demonstrate that you're not bringing your ego to work?
It's difficult to answer that question because it's, for me, it's in a daily life, every day, how I carry myself. And it's something that has been with me for a long time. So I don't see myself as an egoistic person by default. If somebody tells me, no, you're making this mistake, I will take that as a feedback. I will think over it and I will analyze it in a positive frame of mind. So having that approach is important. It's not about me. It's about the problem. It's about finding the best solution to that problem. So in a way, it comes easy in that sense. Once you have that positive frame of mind, once you, in a way, when you're dealing with a particular problem, however big that problem might be, if you say, I'm the leader, I have to be right, or I have all the answers. If you come to the table with that approach, of course, the ego will come into picture, and then, no, but what I say has to be the last one. It doesn't have to be. If you come with the positive mindset, if you come with this awareness, I don't have to be right. I don't have all the solutions. That's what create that environment.
Have you actually had real cases like that where you've thought something, they've said, well, no,
Yes.
and this is why, and you've then said, well, okay, in that case, I agree, we'll do it your way. Yeah. Where you're physically demonstrating, executing on this no ego, consultative, listening approach, encouraging innovation, encouraging the trust. Have you had those cases where you could demonstrate that to them?
Yes, absolutely, and it's important. Otherwise, you are not walking the talk. So I can preach whatever I want, but if I don't practice, it doesn't work. So yes, multiple times, many times we have that. At the same time, as I said, the first barrier or the first filter is company strategic priorities. If something that being suggested doesn't pass that filter, it's not acceptable. So that strategic priority has to be the number one filter, and then comes the rest.
Yeah, I can see that. And I guess, did you find that the first few times that you started to do that they were sort of watching to see if it was real or just, fake? I mean, did they accept what you said straight away, or did you get some sense of they're just testing me to see if I'm actually really congruent here with what I'm doing and what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, for sure. Mm-hmm. Because even if somebody gives an idea which might not pass through the first filter as well, it's important to explain them why. It's not, you cannot say, no, please don't be foolish. You cannot say that. it's again an approach. It's a communication style. You cannot put them down, because the moment you say that, they might shut off completely, and more importantly, they could also get confused. Because what is very important as well is, if somebody is saying something which is not in line with the company's strategic priorities or strategic vision, then there is a bigger problem. So they probably don't even understand the strategic priorities, which is even bigger problem. So okay, then let's sit down with them, explain it to them, try to understand where the gaps are, and then work with them. So it's never a good idea to shoot someone down, because that will be end of it. For any employee, to be very honest with you, it doesn't have to be Japanese. For any employees, it's much more truer in Japan, I would say.
So if I was to get up from here and walk over and grab someone and say, "What's the vision for Barilla in Japan?" or "What's
Yeah.
the mission?"
Yeah,
or "What are the values for Barilla in Japan?" would they be able to tell me?
absolutely.
Why would that be?
Because we start every presentation from that.
How
So-
often are the presentations?
Could be monthly. There is a monthly meeting that we have, and what we talk to is, what are our strategic priorities, what have we done about them. So it's a very action oriented, and our KPIs are our strategic priorities. So it's a very simple dialogue. There is a overarching vision or value of the company, which is, as you can see, written in multiple languages here, which is pretty much good for you, good for the planet. So that is something that is overarching. And if something doesn't fit in this vision, it's not even worth sharing, or you don't have the right idea of good for you, good for the planet.
And why do you repeat it every presentation, every month or so? Why do you keep repeating it?
It's important to have that as a reminder for everyone, because
Is this a Japan thing, or is this just a Nikhil thing?
it's me personally. I don't know what other companies do and how they operate. But in my view, it's very easy to digress. It is very easy to get distracted. It's very important to be focused. And if it's like a simple prioritization matrix. If things are in a quadrant of it's not urgent, not important, you don't do it. You just do the stuff that is more important or urgent. So it's a similar kind of concept, similar kind of mindset. If it is fitting our strategic priorities, then we do it. Yes, there could be some tough decisions we have to make, but then if it is a requirement for the business, we do it.
And how about, the pressure from headquarters, as you said, ambitious targets, big hopes for Japan?
Yeah.
How do you go about, navigating between your team and their requirements and headquarter requirements?
Look, there is always going to be a gap in between how Italy sees Japan, or how Italy looks at Japan, and what Japan is as a market. The best example of that is the quality standards that we have in Japan. So in Japan, we talk about parts per million or parts per billion. In Italy, they talk about 98%. So for any company, 95% of expected, be it quality of packaging, quality of product, quality of service, quality of anything, is easy. It doesn't cost a lot of money. From going to 95 to 98, you start spending a lot of money. And then every percentile from there on costs a company huge amount of money. So even in a tough market like Australia, where you have two key retailers, the service levels in order to delivery is 98%, and it's acceptable. As long as you hit 98%, you're okay. When it comes to Japan, 98 is what you start from. Your target is 100. 99.5 is not acceptable. And this is something that is very, very Japanese. This is very, very much in Japan. And while being in Japan, you understand that where they're coming from, what is the kind of culture. When you go and look at the products in the supermarket, it's all beautifully shrink wrapped, beautifully kept. It's like I don't even want to eat it. It's so beautiful. If you see watermelon, it's fantastically packaged, fantastically displayed. Um, these things don't happen in outside countries. So there's always this gap where Italy says, no, but it's not possible to have 100% perfection. It's going to cost us XYZ. And we could deliver 100% perfection, but it's not at the cost or the price that we are charging you. And Japan says, no, 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 I need the 100%, but at the price that I want to pay. So there's always this two scheme of thought. And there is no magic bullet. And when I talk to other CEOs of other companies, everybody's in the same boat. Everybody keeps on talking and sharing about their challenges in their business. And it's very interesting that it's so relatable and doesn't have to be, I mean, our head office is in Italy. But a company based in US would have the same issues. A company based in Mexico, a company based in Australia, similar issues, similar mindset, similar approach. And this is Japan. So when someone says that only in Japan, this is one of the examples of only in Japan.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. And if you're going to think about, what we've talked about so far, are there any questions on leading in Japan that I missed that I should have asked you that we haven't covered?
Could be personal life. Because a very important part of a leader is the family. And I've seen multiple examples, not necessarily in Japan, but mostly expats, where if they are not able to take care of their family in a way where family is comfortable and they are enjoying the place, it doesn't last long. So it's important to have that part covered. Now, it's important to put that extra effort if someone is moving to Japan, as an example, because Japan is even more difficult. I have two daughters, and my daughter, when we were in Singapore before this, she was learning Mandarin, but that was more of an additional skill that she wanted to learn. When we moved to Japan, she's now learning Japanese, which is a necessity. It's not nice to have. It's an important necessity. So for them to see the benefits, to start enjoying that is important. And one more important part is, in my view, you have to come to Japan in an open-ended assignment, open-ended mindset, which is not, okay, I'm going to be here for 3 years and I'm going to get out. You cannot have that kinds of attitude. It needs to be, okay, I'm here. I'm going to be here for long term, and we see how we go. And you start setting yourself up with that kind of mind frame, that kind of mindset. I'm taking Japanese lessons because I want to learn Japanese. I want to get good at it. It's a very difficult language and I'm struggling, but I'm putting an effort. I'm putting a serious effort. So I think it's important.
And how is that perceived by the staff? Do they look at you and they say, oh, he's really taking Japanese culture, language seriously. He's making an effort, even though he may not be here for such an extended period of time, but he's really trying his best. Do they appreciate that?
Absolutely. It's not just by the team, it is respected overall. So when in Japan, if you put that extra effort in understanding the culture, if you put that extra effort in understanding or even trying to learn the language, will I be able to speak Japanese in next 5 years, probably the way you speak? Probably not. But if I am able to even show that I'm putting real effort, I'm able to speak basic level where I go to a restaurant, I know what to order. If I get into a cab, I can tell the driver where to go. I think that's respected. And that's good enough, I think, to start with.
So if we had to sort of think of a couple of pieces of advice in addition to the advice you've already given earlier about doing business in Japan, leading in Japan, for people who are new to the country, like you were sent out here, you know, from Singapore, you hadn't even been a tourist here, suddenly, bang, you're in town, away you go. Think about people who might be in a similar situation. What would be some advice?
For me, the key one is, actually there are two, and these are really the values: patience and resilience.
Patience and resilience.
Patience and resilience.
What do you mean by that?
Things will not happen quickly in Japan. Things take its own time. And it is excruciatingly difficult. Simple things could be which probably in your home country would be very simple to do. You could even do it online. Here, no, it takes considerable amount of time. A simple thing that, and I'll give you a couple of examples. So, if you want to convert your driving license to Japanese license, for me it took one whole day, whereas in Australia I could have gone to a motor registry, done it in an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending upon how much wait time there is. But I spent literally from 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening, and up to by around 5:30 in the evening, I was thinking maybe I'm not going to get it done today. So that's one example. I go to the bank and I wait there for 3 hours to do simple things. It's something that, I mean, in Australia, I don't even remember going to the bank. I always do everything online. So these kind of things, it can really add up to the frustration. And it's important that you deal with these things in a patient way. I'm giving these as a personal examples, but similar things would happen in business, because simple things you would expect, come on, this is easy. This should not take so much time. But no, I mean, a simple decision can take a whole month to make a decision. So this is something that is very important. And here comes a resilience part as well, that you have to keep going. You have to keep going. You cannot start getting frustrated that, oh my God, this is too tough. I don't want to do it. Then, of course, your stint is going to be a short one. But if you come with these two aspects where you are ready to be patient, given to the idea that you are now in Japan and there is a certain way Japan is going to behave, and not forgetting you are coming to Japan is not going to change for you based on where you're coming from. So I think these things are important to understand. And a lot of times I think people do forget that. People don't have that awareness, which creates frustration. So it's important to understand that I'm in a different country. I have to cope with the culture, the way things are done in this country. If I bring my baggage from another country, it's going to not last very long.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion about coming into a new market, new country, and trying to understand the lay of the land, how things work here. Nikhil, thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
This has been fabulous.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Please join us again for the next episode of Japan's top business interviews. Thank you for joining the Leadership Japan series. If you found the program useful, then tell your family, friends, and colleagues. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast. You can contact me at greg.story@dalecarnegie.com, greg.story@dalecarnegie.com. We have lots and lots of great stuff on our website, injapan.dalecarnegie.com. And until next episode, take what you thought valuable, put it into action, because idea application is what makes winners winners, so be one of them. Remember, I'm your corporate coaching and training guy here in Japan, ready to help you grow your business.